A viral investigation may make you think twice before grabbing a shopping cart. Behind those glossy ads and weekly flyers, some of America's most popular grocery stores are hiding shocking secrets. From unsafe storage to sneaky label tricks, your dinner might be one aisle away from disaster. If you shop at these 5 chains, you might want to take a second look at what is really going into your cart. What you do not know could ruin your appetite, or worse. Let us start with the discount darling that has exploded in popularity, Dollar Tree. Once known for party supplies and greeting cards, Dollar Tree has pushed deep into the grocery game. But not all expansion is good expansion. Behind the frozen pizza and ready-to-eat meals lies a massive food safety crisis. A government inspection report in 2023 revealed that over 60% of Dollar Tree stores failed basic food safety standards. That includes meat kept at dangerous temperatures, expired dairy still on shelves, and malfunctioning coolers that go unrepaired for days. Think about that. If you walk into 3 Dollar Tree locations, chances are 2 of them have food sitting out in unsafe conditions. That is not a gamble worth taking just to save a few bucks on frozen chicken nuggets. And it gets worse. The stores are often understaffed, sometimes just 1 or 2 employees running the entire operation. That means there is nobody available to regularly check fridge temperatures, rotate out old food, or remove products that are clearly past their prime. And do not count on the packaging to save you. The food packaging used at Dollar Tree is often the thinnest allowed by law, which means those plastic seals are barely stronger than cling wrap. One bump in transport or a cracked freezer case, and you have got a bacteria breeding ground waiting for your microwave. A former store manager described the meat section as, "Whatever survives the truck ride gets sold." That is not a punchline, it is a warning. The scariest part? Dollar Tree gets much of its refrigerated and frozen stock from what the industry calls opportunity buyers. That is a polite way of saying they buy rejected or surplus goods that other retailers passed on. One food safety expert described their supply chain as a mystery meat maze. Goods change hands so many times, it is almost impossible to trace where they came from or how long they have been thawed and refrozen, so that lasagna tray you just picked up might have done more traveling than your last vacation. But Dollar Tree is not alone. Let us talk about Kroger. At first glance, Kroger looks like a reliable neighborhood store. Wide aisles, fresh displays, store brand deals that seem too good to be true. And that is exactly the problem, because sometimes they are. An undercover audit by food quality inspectors in 2022 found mislabeled meat, expired poultry still on shelves, and inconsistent temperature controls in over 30% of locations visited. One former employee confessed that when meat turned brown or lost its color, managers would reshuffle it into new packaging with extended dates. In other words, yesterday's almost bad steak becomes tomorrow's deal of the day. And do not be fooled by the fresh ground today label on their beef. Employees admitted that older meat was often ground in with fresh cuts to stretch the supply and avoid throwing anything away. That beef patty might be a few days older than you think. What makes this even more concerning is how little transparency Kroger provides when something goes wrong. In 2021, they issued a quiet recall for over 2,000 pounds of ground beef, potentially contaminated with plastic pieces. But instead of placing signs in stores or alerting customers directly, the notice was buried on their website's legal section. Imagine buying tainted meat and never even knowing it was part of a recall. That is not just a safety issue, it is a trust issue. And the pricing games do not help. Kroger uses an aggressive zone pricing system. That means the same product might cost you more or less depending on which side of town you shop in. A gallon of milk in one store might be $3.50, while just 15 miles away it is $4.20. It is legal, but it feels shady, especially when store loyalty cards make it harder to know what the real price actually is. And good luck figuring it out at checkout. The price tags change so frequently that even employees admit they cannot keep up. Now let us shift focus to another store with a clean-cut image and a growing number of loyal shoppers, Trader Joe's. Quirky, friendly, and full of samples. But behind the Hawaiian shirts and freezer packs lies something you probably have not noticed. Trader Joe's has one of the most secretive supply chains in the entire grocery world. Nearly every product is private label, meaning it is sold under the Trader Joe's name, but made by outside companies. And they do not disclose who those companies are. Not to you, not to journalists, not even to their own employees. That cute Trader Giotto's pasta sauce could be made by a major factory brand or a tiny supplier nobody has heard of. There is no way to tell. And when food recalls happen, that lack of transparency becomes a real issue. In 2020, Trader Joe's had to pull dozens of frozen meals due to listeria risk. But because the supplier's name was hidden, affected customers had trouble knowing if their specific product was dangerous. And that is not just confusing, it is dangerous. And here's another surprise. Many Trader Joe's meat and seafood items are previously frozen, even when labeled fresh. Industry insiders say Trader Joe's uses strategic wording to avoid technically lying while still giving the impression of freshness. That fresh Atlantic salmon might have been frozen solid a week ago and then thawed in-store for display. The only thing fresh is the marketing? That mystery extends to expiration dates too. Trader Joe's does not use standardized sell-by labels. Instead, they rely on ambiguous best buy or enjoy buy wording that gives them wiggle room. But it creates confusion for customers who want to know how long their food will actually last. And it is not just confusing, it is inconsistent. 2 bags of the same product from the same shelf might have wildly different best by dates. One employee shared that restocking rules are often ignored due to staffing shortages. So the older item ends up on top and the newer one gets buried. The checkout experience? Friendly, sure. But the lack of scanning systems means every item is manually keyed in. That creates more human error, which means your bill might be higher than it should be, and you will never know unless you double-check each receipt line by line. And do not even get started on their return policy. It sounds generous, but many items are ineligible for refund if they are considered seasonal, even if they are clearly spoiled or mislabeled. Trader Joe's fans may love the atmosphere, but when it comes to transparency, they are shopping in the dark. If this video helped you so far, subscribing helps us shine a light on more stories like this. Plus, we kind of love doing it. Next on the list is one of the biggest names in the game, Safeway. A store that markets itself as a neighborhood-friendly, higher-end shopping experience. But the truth about their meat department alone might have you sprinting for the exits. Safeway has been caught in multiple major recalls over the past decade, and what sets them apart is not the number of problems. It is how quietly they try to sweep them under the rug. In 2014, Safeway had to recall beef products across 7 states after customers started getting sick. Not after the problem was detected, after people were already sick. No warning signs, no public alerts, just quietly removed stock and a vague press statement. And that pattern has continued. In 2020, they issued another major recall for ground beef, possibly contaminated with plastic and metal fragments. The problem? Many stores did not even notify customers. One former manager admitted their store got the recall email 3 full days after the official alert. That is 3 days of families buying and cooking meat that might have been filled with sharp debris. And even when alerts are issued, they are buried, not on front doors, not near the registers, just deep in the legal section of the corporate website where only the most determined shoppers will ever find them. If you are not subscribed to food recall bulletins or checking government health websites, you would never know your dinner just became a health hazard. Their silence is not just concerning, it is dangerous. But Safeway's issues go beyond meat. Investigations have found expired dairy items still being sold, especially in rural and lower traffic locations. Multiple customer reports reveal sour milk and moldy cheese being stocked well past expiration dates. One shopper even posted a photo of yogurt that expired 2 weeks prior, still proudly displayed at full price. When asked about it, staff shrugged and said, "We have been short-staffed." That short-staffed excuse comes up often. Many Safeway stores now operate with skeleton crews, especially during off-peak hours. That means entire departments are left unmonitored for hours. Nobody to check refrigeration temps, nobody to rotate stock, nobody to pull dangerous items from shelves. Just a few overworked employees trying to do the job of 10. That is not just bad for service, it is a recipe for disaster. And if you think you can rely on packaging to protect you, think again. Safeway's in-house brand often uses thin seals and vacuum packs that fail under mild temperature changes. Shoppers have reported meat leaking through packaging, pooling raw juices onto other products. Cross-contamination becomes a serious risk, especially for customers with allergies or weakened immune systems. Their cold section might look clean, but what is happening behind the scenes is far from sanitary. Now let us talk about a store that markets itself as the gold standard of healthy living, Whole Foods. From the moment you walk in, it is a carefully designed performance. Warm lighting, polished displays, labels that practically sing about sustainability, local farms, and premium quality. But peel back that green curtain and you will see a much less wholesome reality. In 2015, the New York Department of Consumer Affairs caught Whole Foods repeatedly overcharging customers by mislabeling meat weights. Not once, not twice, repeatedly. In some cases, customers were paying $4 more than they should have per package. The store was fined over $800,000 for these practices, but quietly settled the matter and moved on like nothing happened. No big apology, no store-wide transparency, just back to business as usual. But the mislabeling did not stop with weight. Former employees from multiple locations revealed that regular meat was sometimes labeled as organic or grass-fed, especially during supply chain shortages. When the good stuff ran out, managers were allegedly told to swap the label, not the story. So that grass-fed steak you paid extra for might have been just the regular version dressed up for the occasion. And then there is the temperature problem. You would think a store charging premium prices would prioritize refrigeration safety, but according to food safety audits in California, nearly 40% of Whole Foods meat departments were cited for temperature violations over a 3-year period. In some stores, chicken sat above safe temperatures for hours. Fish was displayed under warm lights with no ice. One inspector described it as fancy but frightening. Even their definition of local stretches credibility. Signs proudly proclaim that meat comes from local farms, but Whole Foods language, local can mean anything within 400 miles. That is like calling a burger from a farm in another state your neighborhood special. It might sound nice, but it is more marketing magic than reality. Their prices also raise eyebrows. A nationwide study comparing meat prices across 10 major cities found Whole Foods charges between 60 and 90% more than competitors for similar cuts. And in blind taste tests, that extra money does not buy better flavor. One test found their organic chicken scored lower than the standard grocery store options. So what are you really paying for? A health halo and some mood lighting? The illusion is strong. The reality is weaker than their cling wrap. Customers walk out feeling like they made the healthy choice, but end up overpaying for underperforming meat. That is not just frustrating, it is misleading. And while Whole Foods gets a lot of attention, there is one more store where meat safety concerns are downright scary: Family Dollar. A store more associated with canned soup and bargain detergent than ribeye steaks, but make no mistake, they are selling meat, frozen, refrigerated, and dangerously inconsistent. A 2023 inspection from the United States Department of Agriculture found that more than 70% of Family Dollar stores failed food safety protocols related to storage temperatures and freezer maintenance. That is 7 out of 10 stores putting frozen meat at risk. If your steak is sitting in a freezer that cuts off every few hours, you might as well be leaving it on your car dashboard. It is that unsafe. Freezers that break down, thermometers that go unchecked, meat that gets soft and refreezes. Every part of the process is a problem. One former employee said their store had a broken cooler for 3 weeks, during which time they were told to just keep it closed and hope for the best. Hope is not a food safety strategy. And because many Family Dollar stores have minimal staff, issues go unreported. One person might be managing the register, stocking shelves, and trying to check for temperature alerts all at once. That means when something goes wrong, nobody notices until it is too late. Or worse, they notice and are told to ignore it to avoid throwing away product. There is a word for this kind of behavior: negligence. And let us not forget the supply source. Like Dollar Tree, Family Dollar relies heavily on third-party distributors who specialize in excess, surplus, and discount meat. These products often have shorter shelf lives, less stable packaging, and a history of rejections from other retailers. In one viral photo, a Family Dollar shopper showed a thawed chicken breast sweating inside a fogged-up container, still on the shelf, marked fresh pick. But perhaps the most shocking part, the price. A market study revealed that Family Dollar's frozen meat prices were only about 10% cheaper than traditional grocery stores. That tiny savings comes at a massive safety risk. And when you factor in the likelihood of freezer failure or poor handling, that deal starts to look like a ticking time bomb. When you step into a store, you should feel confident that what you buy is safe to cook, safe to eat, and fairly priced. But too often, the opposite is true. From mislabeled cuts to dangerous storage conditions, these 5 stores have turned grocery shopping into a gamble. If you have ever walked through the meat section of a grocery store and thought, why does this chicken look a little off? You are not alone. A growing number of shoppers are starting to question just how fresh their food really is. And the deeper you dig, the clearer it becomes. The problems go beyond individual mistakes or unlucky purchases. These are patterns, cut corners, lowered standards, and silent cost cutting, all wrapped in shrink wrap. The real issue is trust. When a store puts fresh on a label, we assume that means safe. When they say organic, we believe it is honest. But across multiple grocery chains, those words mean less than they used to. They are part of the performance. A shiny label, a friendly cashier, a spotless floor, none of it guarantees the food is being handled right behind the scenes. And in many cases, it is not. Take packaging, for example. You probably never gave much thought to how your meat is sealed, but maybe you should. At several of these chains, including Dollar Tree, Safeway, and Family Dollar, the plastic used is so thin and flimsy it may as well be plastic wrap from your kitchen drawer. One bump on a freezer shelf or a leaky cooler, and bacteria has a backstage pass into your dinner. And once it gets in, it stays. No amount of cooking can erase poor handling that started days ago. And what about staffing? Fewer workers means less oversight. Less oversight means more mistakes. It only takes a few hours at the wrong temperature for meat to go from fine to foul. And if nobody's checking, nobody's catching it. Several former employees from these stores revealed that training on food safety was either rushed, outdated, or completely skipped. One person said they learned how to check meat temperatures by watching a coworker do it once, wrongly. Another admitted they were never shown how to tell if meat had gone bad. They just went by smell and hoped for the best. You would not accept that kind of gamble at a restaurant, so why accept it at the place you buy groceries every week? Let us not forget price. The illusion is that cheaper means better for your wallet. But if you buy meat that ends up in the trash, or worse, sends someone to the emergency room, was it really cheaper? That $3 discount disappears fast when it costs you 24 hours of food poisoning. And the more you look at the numbers, the more the savings vanish. Many of these low-end chains offer meats only 10 to 15% cheaper than traditional stores. In exchange, you get weaker packaging, older product, and a much higher chance of contamination. That is not savings. That is risk with a discount sticker. And while we are on the topic of perception, let us talk about labels. From Whole Foods to Trader Joe's, fancy fonts and eco-friendly buzzwords give the impression that every bite is clean, sustainable, and ethically sourced. But when you dig into the sourcing methods, things get murky. Several grass-fed or organic labels are based on supplier claims that are rarely verified. And with private label dominance, there is zero way for customers to independently check who actually raised or processed that meat. You are buying a story, not a steak. The psychology is smart. Stores want to make you feel like you are making the right choice, healthier for you, better for the planet, a treat for the family. But the truth is, even some of the most expensive grocery chains cut corners. In blind taste tests, some premium-priced meats from Whole Foods and Trader Joe's ranked below regular store brands in flavor and texture. One test panelist described an organic steak as chewy, bland, and definitely not worth $20. And that illusion extends all the way to checkout. Stores like Trader Joe's skip barcode scanning in favor of manual input, which feels charming but introduces more room for error. Others like Safeway overload customers with discount codes, loyalty points, and promotions, making it nearly impossible to track what you actually paid for. It feels like a deal, but often it is just a distraction. So where does that leave you? Standing in a fluorescent lit aisle trying to guess whether the meat in front of you is safe. That is not how grocery shopping should feel. It should be simple, honest, reliable. But in too many cases, it has become a guessing game where poor storage, vague labeling, and inconsistent training leave you playing roulette with your dinner plate. And it is not just about flavor or value anymore. It is about health. Older adults, young children, people with compromised immune systems. These are the folks who suffer the most when something goes wrong. And most of the time, they never know what hit them. A day of nausea, a night in the bathroom, a doctor's visit where nobody ever connects it to the chicken breast from the sale bin. The truth is, grocery stores are businesses, and like any business, they are under pressure to cut costs, boost profits, and move product fast. But unlike shoes or clothes, food safety is not optional. When shortcuts are taken behind the scenes, the cost gets passed to the customer in ways that do not show up on the receipt. Spoiled meat, contaminated packages, false labels. These are not flukes. They are symptoms of a system that has been quietly slipping for years. Some shoppers are starting to fight back, choosing smaller local butcher shops, visiting farmers markets where you can look someone in the eye and ask where the meat came from, supporting co-ops or community-supported agriculture programs that focus on transparency. But at least you are not buying mystery meat from a broken freezer and hoping for the best. And to be fair, not every location of these big chains is a disaster. There are some managers who truly care, some employees who go the extra mile, but they are fighting against a machine that is built to maximize margin. not safety. And hoping you find that one good location is not a strategy. It is a gamble, and meat safety should never be a gamble. So the next time you walk into a store and see that bright red sticker screaming fresh, take a moment, look closer, check the packaging, check the temperature. Ask yourself how a steak can cost less than your morning coffee. Ask who packed it, when, how long ago. Because if the answers are unclear, your decision should be too. It does not matter how nice the store smells or how friendly the cashier is. If the meat is questionable, the whole cart is compromised. It only takes one bad purchase to turn dinner into a disaster. And these 5 chains, Dollar Tree, Family Dollar, Safeway, Trader Joe's, and Whole Foods, have given us more than enough reasons to think twice. This is not just about shopping. It is about being aware, about realizing that those bright lights and bargain signs might be hiding a darker truth, one that is easy to ignore until it ends up on your plate. So next time you plan a meal, remember, the label might lie, the package might leak, and the store might not care, but now you know better. And knowledge is your sharpest tool in the grocery aisle. Because when it comes to the meat you feed your family, nothing matters more than knowing exactly what you are getting. And what you are getting from these stores might not be worth the risk. Grocery stores don't always tell the full story, but we try to. If you found this helpful, a like and subscribe really helps us keep going. Thanks for watching, and remember, the truth is not always on the label.